In this video, we're going to continue to explore Blender and its main tools. And we're going to talk about selection and the 3D cursor, and also how to work with the coordinates and the pivot points and origins of the objects, and also the snaps. So we're going to go deeper into these topics that we encountered in the first videos, so we can investigate now a little bit more and get a little bit deeper. Now, the first thing I want to show you, now you understand that we always use, in a way or the other, some shortcut keys. Now, if you want to set up your own shortcut keys, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and here, let's open up this a little bit more, you will find Key Map. So this panel here, it's really important if you want to check what are the existing shortcut keys for any action. So you can just expand these arrows here, and you can see that all the shortcut keys are assigned, or you can also look for something more specific directly if you want to be a little bit faster. So for example, I like to change here the redo. So you can see that I have inserted Control Epsilon. So if I click restore, this will be the original shortcut keys. And if I want to change that, I can click there, and you can see it's telling me to press a key. So I'm gonna type Control Epsilon, and also here I can click with my left mouse and then type with the keyboard Control Epsilon, and this is gonna be saved. Now I can go back to the original shortcut keys anytime by clicking here. And just as a reminder, you can go down here in this hamburger menu, click there, and load the factory preferences anytime. So if you believe that something went wrong here by changing some of these settings, you can always go back to load factory preferences. Okay, now this was the first thing I want to show you because we're gonna use some shortcut keys now. Now the first shortcut key I want to show you is the Z. Now the Z is gonna help you to quickly change here from the different views. And since we're gonna work with the view a lot, this is really important. And you can see now that I'm using a light to render here this scene in the preview. And when we use the render preview, it's really important where we place the lights. This is gonna affect the overall look and feel of the image. Now later we're gonna talk about lightning and materials and so on. Right now, just wanted to show you this quick shortcut key that I find really helpful. Now another thing I want to show you actually is if I go back here to the preferences and the key map, you also have some extra options here at the top, which it's called preference. So you can change the action of the mouse or of the spacebar. Now, by default, it's set on play, but this is useful when you do animation. Now, you can also change it and use it for different tools. So if you set here tools instead of play, this is how you're gonna use the spacebar now. So if I am in the view here and press the spacebar, you can see I can access the selection, the cursor, the move, rotate, and scale, transform. And these are also the shortcut keys if you want to use them. So G for move, which stands for grab, and R to rotate, S to scale, T to transform, and so on. So again, if you are interested in shortcut keys, I just show you where you can find all of them. Now let's move on. And an extra shortcut key is N. N is gonna expand this left panel, which you can also click and drag, or you can open by going into the view. So you have many ways you can open this one. And we saw that this is helpful when you need to transform your objects, but also it has these other two panels here which are pretty helpful. Now this one here, it's about the active tool. So right now I am in the move tool, and I can change also the coordinates from here, the orientation or global coordinates, or I can set this to default, or I can decide what to change. For example, I can affect only the origins with this, but we're gonna get to that later. And also we can define the view. So you can see that the view as an endpoint is like a clipping part. So you can decide the far clip and the near clip. So where the scene will start and well, it will end basically. So if you want a smaller scene and also lighter scene. You can get this really near. But we're gonna talk also about those things later on. And also we have in this view tab the option for the 3D cursor, which we are going to talk about also in this video. But you can affect here the position of the or location of the 3D cursor from here as well, and also the rotation. So also the 3D cursor adds a rotation. Now a couple of more things about the views. Now if you go here, you have these filters, so you can activate or deactivate something in the scene. So if I deactivate the light and I am in render mode, I won't be able to see those elements enlightened anymore. So these are filters that can be helpful when you need to simplify your view. And here you can also decide whether to see the gizmos of the rotate, move, and all of those things. So these are also like optional, so if you want to see them or not, or if you want to see also the navigation tool, the active tools, and all the other stuff that's around the viewport, which usually is helpful, so I wouldn't change those. Now you can also decide, for example, if you don't want to see the global move, rotate, and scale. So when you, for example, select here, those are not gonna be visible, or you can visualize those also in the when you use the selection. So these are kind of extra options on the views and on what to show or not to show. And the third one here is pretty helpful for the grid. You can see here that you can activate and deactivate the grid. You can see or not the axis of the world, so the world coordinates, which are represented by these three lines, as you already know, red, green, and blue. And so you can decide if you want to see them or not, and you can decide also the scale of the grid. So if you want it bigger or smaller, and if you want some subdivisions there, how many subdivisions. So you can set up a little bit the things from here, or you can leave everything as it is. So it's gonna be 1 and 10 here, and this is, remember, referring to the units of your scene. So if you go here, you can check the units, which usually are in meters, but you can change them. You can change also the unit scale right here. So you can set up everything here. Now, when you use snap here, well, you can also snap to the increments, which are going to be referring to the increments of the world, so the units basically. Okay, and also here I can decide to see the 3D cursors, the annotation, the statistics. I like the statistics right there because they're gonna tell me information about the scene, and that's it for now. Now, also I want to show you this other little button here, which is Xray. Now, when you're working in render mode or shading mode, so when you see the materials and the lights, you cannot use that ghosting mode. But when you are in this solid style, or well, wireframe, you don't need ghosting because you can already see through objects. But this one here, when you are in the solid mode, you can see through objects right there. So you can like quickly set up the objects and place them in a correct way. Okay, and you can see right now I'm using increments. You can see that this hat here is snapping. It's not moving fluidly, but it's kind of moving in increments, because I have increments activated. So I'm gonna deactivate the snap right there, and you can see now it moves fluidly. So we're gonna get to snaps in just a minute. I'm gonna go as usual, step by step, trying not to confuse you, but there will be like a little bit, I think, of confusion in the beginning with all these settings, like more advanced settings. So I will try to start real simple and then increase a little bit the level. Now you can also click and expand this if you didn't notice. If you expand it a little bit, you're gonna see the names here of these different commands. Now let's start with the simplest, which is selections. Now you can see that this is kind of it's getting in the way here. So I just wanted to show you that you can, if you want, use it, but I'm gonna keep it off. Okay, now selection. You have 4 types of selections here. The standard is select box. Really simple. You can click and drag and select objects that are touched by that dashed line of the rectangle. And also you have additional tools here and here at the top, which are the addition. So you can add more selection. You can subtract to the current selection. You can invert the current selection, and you can intersect the current selection. So the first one is the standard. So every time I'm going to click and drag, it's going to create a new selection. The second one is going to add. So it's like if I holding shift. So in the standard mode, if I select and hold shift, I will add. If I click and on that object selected, I'm going to deselect. So it's like using shift basically. So right here, if I select this one here and click and continue to select, it's going to add to the selection. Pretty straightforward. Now, if I use this one here, it's going to subtract to the selection. So you can see I've just subtracted the sphere there and the monkey head. And invert is going to invert what I am selecting. So if I select the monkey head and then continue here to select everything, there you go, it's going to select the inverse. And then you have the intersection. So only the part that is going to be in this selection and in the new is going to be kept. The other will be deselected. So I don't know how everything can be helpful, but I'm just showing you this, but you can then use it if you want or not. Usually I stick with the original selection tool there. Now let's move on to the tweak. Now tweak is pretty handy when you need to organize pretty quickly the objects in the scene. So if you just click and drag, there's gonna be just a quick movement basically. So it's selecting and moving. But using this tweak, you don't never know where you are positioning the object, because in the 3D world, it's really difficult to understand where you are like moving things around. So you can use the constraints. So when you use X, when you press X, when you're moving an object, that's gonna constrain the movement to the X axis. And if you do that with the epsilon, it's gonna constrain in the epsilon axis. And Z is gonna well, this is another shortcut key actually, but if I do that again and press Z when I'm moving the object, it's gonna constrain to the Z. Now another way I can do this, it's inverting this